All right. Last speaker here on this track. Bringing on Jeff Moore, good friend of mine. Jeff, what's up, man?
It's good to see you. Been a while.
Good to see you. Yep, I'm glad you hopped on, and I think, man, we have a lot to talk. You've been all over the place. You have a search going on. You have your business. Maybe just give us a little background on you and what you're up to these days.
Yeah. First of all, have you eaten in the last 2 days?
I need to eat, so yeah, this is my last one. I'm gonna grab a bite, and then we're on to the next track. So.
Yeah, you're good, dude.
Thank
Yeah.
you for thinking about me.
Yeah,
I
for sure,
actually
man.
have an IV running. No one sees it, and that's how I'm being fed. So,
Yeah.
my boss was nice enough to hook me up with that.
That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, the wealth of knowledge that's been through this has been unbelievable, man. You guys definitely knocked it out of the park with
Yeah.
this. So
Well, thanks to people like you hopping on here and just sharing what you got. I mean, everyone's
yeah,
been very
yeah.
gracious with their knowledge. So,
Yeah, and so I'm from Denver, Colorado. I have a real estate team here too. And then in the last 5 months, a couple co-founders and I started Osiris.
mhm.
What we noticed was such a hole in the industry with like helping teams and agents kind of fill the gaps between systems and automations, right?
Yeah.
And going back to, what he said before was, man, there are so many shiny objects. There are so many things out there that for the agent, it's kind of hard to pick which one is going to be good, which one works with you, and how am I going to make it work with everything else? And so we saw a hole and we filled it, and it's been amazing for us for the last couple of months for sure.
So talk me through what Osiris does for someone who hasn't heard of you yet.
So, I mean, really, we're just, on the first call, we're kind of get a sense on what you do, right? And get an idea of like what workflows, what's your vision, how do you want to scale, what's your ultimate goal, and then we're going to work backwards into basically creating a flowchart. And again, like I feel like all these different speakers have kind of validated this approach, right? And consumers, it's all about that consumer experience. So we need to figure out, how does the consumer experience need to look, right? What do they need to get, right? In what time period? Is it a call within 5 minutes? Is it a text? AI versus a CMA versus, a list of homes, whatever. And then once you've got what your consumer experience is, reverse engineer it into, okay, how do I make that work with 6 different lead sources, referrals, my CRM, my website, and all these different pieces, right? So that's a lot of what we'll do is we'll take that 10,000 foot view and then put together a flow chart, more or less, for your entire system. And the idea is to give you a foundation that you can bolt on now multiple lead sources, right? Multiple different things as they come along in the next couple of years, and you can scale, right? So we're like a done for you type of a company instead of a done with you
Okay.
type of a company. The idea is to give you something that you can scale with agents, you can scale with lead sources, and you have now systems you can use for years to come, right?
Yeah.
So,
I know automation plays a big role in this. I
yeah,
remember actually when you came on to Sisu, you dug in quick. You had all these things you were automating. I was like, man, this guy's really getting after it. I thought it was really cool. And I
yeah.
think, that's part of what qualifies you to go and do something like what you're doing at Osiris. But I mean,
Yeah.
talk to me about automation and the role it plays and how you guys tackle some of that.
Automation in our industry right now is the sexy term, right?
Yeah, it
And
totally.
and it's a little, for me, it's a little bit cliche, and it's a little bit like, look, we're not doing automation for the sake of automation. We're doing automation because we want the client experience to be better. For a lot of team leaders, our client is the real estate agent,
Yeah.
right? So going back to all the speakers before me, we talk about how to get the client's experience, the agent's experience, to say less than 3 months with a lead, right? How to pay attention to alerts when they come in, right? And so you've got great products like YLopo, like you guys, and some open API, some open companies that say, come figure it out and integrate. And that way, when there is something that raises their hand, the agent can pay attention now more to those than just blasting through a call list, right? And I think, we have increased the agent's dollar per hour over the last couple of years with technology,
Yeah.
right? We've honed in their skills to conversion, to appointment, to clients, right? And now automation makes the things that are not that, easier, right? It makes that stuff come to the forefront. So using tools like Slack, using tools like Zapier. I mean, Zapier is just a giant hole, right? That you're like, man, you can spend your entire life working on Zapier. But if the agent's experience is really clean and they're getting those hand raisers, that's the goal. That's why we have to do it. Right?
Yeah. I'll add something on automation. I run into this a lot. People want to automate a process that isn't defined and they don't know how it works. And it's like, let's just slap automation on it, and it just makes things worse, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy because like if you got to think on the front end, right? What's the end experience going to be like, and then work your way backwards
Yep.
to the technology. Don't play shiny objects because there's lots of great apps, lots of great technologies. There's more than one CRM, right? And you've got to find the one that fits for you, but you have to know what do you want first, and then reverse it into how do I make it work,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. That's why that flow charting is such a powerful process. It'll be amazing to have this flow chart afterwards, but half of the value from it, in my opinion, is actually you taking the time, because I've found this myself. I think I know the process, but you start digging in there, you got to write it out, and you got to explain to someone who is coming, fresh eyes on your business, and they
yeah.
haven't been in your business. Man, you find a lot of holes, and you're like,
Yeah. I mean, just getting your thoughts down onto paper is like our thoughts up here, dude. We have life, we have lots of stuff going on.
yeah,
And we kind of help, break that down and put your thoughts on paper, help you discover what's possible. And then now you can start to, leverage it and automate it. And you don't need a lot, you don't need a ton. But man, if you can automate a couple of things in your life, I mean, you're looking at time. And just like, he said before me, was time is your number one currency.
mhm.
Right? This is all to get time back, basically.
So
Right.
curious, how much of what you guys are doing and what you're finding? Because I'm sure, how long have you been running this Osiris?
So we've only had it for about 4 months.
Yeah, I saw the launch. It was awesome. I was really excited about it. And I'm sure you've been learning a lot in there. How much of your work is just minimizing?
Totally, 100%, right? It's like simplifying it down to like I used to coach soccer at a super high level, so I have a A license, and so I learned early on in my coaching career what is one solution that solves 5 problems.
Yeah.
So when I stop a training session and I coach a player, I go, what's the one thing that can solve all of these? And that's it in automation. So simplifying our workflows so that we can kind of pivot off of those in multiple different ways. I mean, that's kind of fun, right? It's kind of that's where my passion's at. I love working on workflows, and I love solving those problems, because then I want my agents to, be able to work on 2 different simple things. In our CRM, it's stage, right, and just communication, paying attention to the leads when they jump at you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and I'll relate from my world too. It's in our CRM. It's we measure one thing we very heavily measure is how many leads do you have an open task with, right? How many leads, how many balls can you be juggling at once, and having those 1-2 things. Because I was having a conversation with Chris, who's a COO over at Whistle's team. 80% of your results are probably coming from 20% of your processes, right? So if you can get that 20% rock solid, it's like magic, right?
Yeah, and if you get that, and that's where Suzy was brilliant, right? Because then if you can get into there looking at the tracking of the numbers, and you can see how that one Zillow process or your sign call process or your Facebook or Ylopo is working. Now the cool part, like what you guys have, is you can see what agents are like in each different lead source. So I can send my YLOPO leads right to my YLOPO guy. I can send my Zillow, leads to right to my Zillow guy.
Yep.
And now you've just, instead of having to double down money-wise financially, now you can double down into like the right spot. And that's like a perfect, model there. It's a lot of fun to look at that and kind of figure out, how that's going to look on your individual team. And everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has a different, way of doing it. Between referrals, there's lots of different ways to sell real estate, right? And that's part of it, is to figure out how you can work with all these different platforms and still get the effect that you want without having to learn, technology. There's lots of great agents out there that are phenomenal in the relationship, phenomenal, right? But they don't know their way around, technology too much, right? So I really feel for a lot of those agents, because I feel like in our, the landscape right now is just littered with lots of apps, lots and lots of different apps, and they all work. They all work, right? So we're going to help kind of break that down and to see how it's going to be best useful for them. And that way they don't have to go learn an application or a technology. They can stay in their lane, and sell.
Yep. So when you get in with your clients, what are some workflows and processes that you're seeing, almost repeatedly, that need fixing, that need looking at, on average?
And then, I might, if it's okay, I could share my screen.
Please do. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And it, a lot of the times it's just, how can you get alert notifications back? Do you see Zapier here?
Yep. I see it.
Okay. So I pulled up my team's Slack account, right? And so these are priority alerts that have come back to our team. And I can't tell you how many times these alerts get missed on other teams, like big time, right? And so for our team now, if it's in the pond, they can click on this and it'll basically jump over to the lead in our CRM for them to claim.
I love it.
Right. And how simple is that? You don't need to know how that works, but that's the end product. I wanted my agents to be able to hop on alerts quickly without having to think about it. Right. And so a lot of the times it's just information, and because we get notification fatigue, there's no doubt about it. We get lots of calls, emails, push notifications, and all that. So I want to, as a team leader and as an automations person, I want to put all that down into one simplified notification that is the right notification. It's the one to pay attention to, not the email that's not worth a darn, right? Yep. So I see a lot of that. Lots of that.
I love it. Good comment from Pete here. Kind of just going back to that whole, simplifying is trying to find what works and using, CSU or tool like ours to measure that. And then you're either going to take the effort to coach up a lead source, which can be done, or you're going to cut out and pump that time and effort back into something that is working. Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because all these, I see a lot of teams that, and over the years, a lot of teams have just dumped tons of money in leads, right? And they failed forward by saying, we blew that one, but we can just get more. We just get more and more and more and more leads. And that's not necessarily a bad, horrible thing. But if we can keep your budgets tight and you can squeeze out more from, specific lead sources, you're actually running a lot tighter of a ship. And come a year like COVID, where a lot of people are throttling back, you don't need to, right? And I've seen a lot of that stuff. But I mean, we live in an age where apps are really good, and everybody's got an open way to work with them. And there's not a lot of instructions beyond a video, beyond some basic instructions to help users really plug them in and get them to work.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk, Jeff, what is in your mind and in what you're seeing, the role of the CRM? How much of your work is just trying to figure out the CRM? Because I mean, personally, I think that's the biggest thing, especially for a sales agent, is the CRM, but maybe you could talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, I guess, one thing is agents probably use 50% of their CRM's capabilities,
Yeah.
right? And when you talk to some of these owners of the CRMs like Dan and whatnot, they say the number one reason why people leave the CRM is because, well, not because, but it's users that are not using more than 50% of it,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of the reasons why is they just don't feel comfortable doing it. They don't have the time to start playing trial and error and learning, right? So they just stay in their lane and they rather revert back to, oh, this works, so I'm just going to keep doing this,
Mhm.
right? That if we can help them get over that hump and start to use more of what the functionality has, then you're going to convert more. You're going to have more leverage that way,
There are studies on that too. Frank on our team dug up a bunch of studies around CRM usage that basically said a 1% increase in CRM is going to be it was like a 0.6 increase in revenue, right?
Yeah.
So a directly correlated boost in your revenue just from people using the CRM. So then as a team leader, half your battle becomes, all right, how do I just get my agents using the CRM, right? Your example is awesome. The screen share that you did, because you're giving them another way to interact and get into the CRM that's easy, it's quick, it's powerful. I love that automation. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and think about there's another app out there that we use called Callingly, and Callingly will call the lead, just much like a realtor.com type of a lead source where it'll call your agent. The agent that picks up gets directly outbound dialed to the lead. Well, we've programmed it now to, after that call, the agent can disposition it and say,
Yeah.
oh, it's an appointment, it's an agent, it has an agent, whatever. And now they don't have to go back into their CRM to change the stage or move the lead or whatever. They just got to respond to the text message, right? And that's not that difficult, but it saves that agent tons of time, having to log back in while they're at dinner with their wife or whatever to
Yep.
do, and so that's where this is like the brain of the operation, right? It's like what I say is I want you to imagine, to a lot of clients, I say, imagine close your eyes, imagine what your Ferrari looks like, right? Map it out in your head. What does it look like? Okay. Now my job is to go put together the Lego pieces and draft the instructions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so as we build, we start to integrate other pieces, right? And when we integrate those other pieces, now it just soars. Like, lead source to CRM to a mailer to CMAs, what do you want that experience to be? That's ultimately the question. So
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Another example, people will do like a disposition for appointments. Hey, did this appointment happen or not? It's going to text directly to the agent. The
Yep.
agent will respond yes or no. That's going to go back into the CRM. And as an agent, I'm still interacting with the CRM. It's just easier, it's faster, it's kind of in my face, right? So
Yeah, and that's where, like, a guy like Daniel Poston, right? He built that brilliant link up with Follow Up Boss to Sizu, and
yep.
after the appointment, he's starting to do a disposition text message to the agent.
Smart, huh?
Smart. And
Yeah.
now it syncs right up to Sizu, and that's what I've been working on lately is alternative CRMs to go right into Sizu without having to make sure the data's right, make sure it's not, it's linking up the right way and it's quick, right? So
That's what I and that's what I tell people too on Sisu is ideally, you imagine you walk into your office and you've got this big leaderboard that's showing how many conversations or how many appointments or how many dials. And oh, if it didn't happen in the CRM, it didn't happen, right? Well,
yeah,
I'm engaging with Sisu. I'm seeing this leaderboard. It's driving my performance, but ultimately it's driving me to get back into that CRM because
yeah,
1% increase in CRM usage, I'm going to see a 0.6 increase in revenue or more, right? So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I'll remember too, we always work off of these lists in agents, right? We get our list and we start to hammer down our list. Well, that's starting to become less efficient, right? We're basically categorizing people all into the same list. Well, what if we automated some of the long-term follow-up or even the medium-term follow-up, and your time was now spent just paying attention to the people who raised their hands?
yeah.
How much better of a quality of life for an agent would that be? And how much more productive could they be with that?
Yeah. One last thing I want to talk about here. I mean, what kind of spreadsheets are you seeing? I feel like sometimes half the job with tech vendors with all of it is just trying to kill spreadsheets. I'm sure you see a lot of them. Is that
Yeah.
part of your line of work too?
Yeah, you gotta, how we use spreadsheets, it's like a centerpiece to the language, right? So we put information from one place onto a spreadsheet, and then we pull from the other place from that spreadsheet, right?
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's a language, because the fields that don't map across
Yeah.
apps very well. And so you got to put it into one house and then pull from that one house. And that brain in the middle is what apps are, right? Like that is the application. And without having to go build your own software, which is costing millions of dollars, you've got great tools out there already.
Yeah.
FTTT, Zapier, you can get into AWS if you know some of that, but that's the key, is that centerpiece is being spreadsheets. And so for us, like, we put all of our API keys, I put our agents, Sisu agent ID on our roster. When we have them fill out their agent onboarding form, we use the API, we plug them into Sisu, we grab their agent ID, plug it into our roster, so that whenever we do anything down the road, we've got a good, clean, Sisu agent ID,
Yeah. I love
and
it. And I think that's what spreadsheets are good for, storing little pieces of data, different things like that. When a spreadsheet becomes a system of record for core business functions, you're either
yeah,
going to spend a ton of time updating it, or it's just not going to be accurate, right?
yeah.
So
And if
that,
it's not visual, right? I mean,
um,
as an agent, I'm not going to be using that as a competitive thing. Like, it just looks like data, right? But if I see, colors, and I see points, and I make it competitive, then man, that's when it can get really productive, and that's
yeah.
the separator for you guys.
Well, an analytical person might enjoy a spreadsheet, but most salespeople, we're not talking, spreadsheet people. We're talking put a
Yeah,
leaderboard up with a pie chart and show me where I stand in comparison to my peers. That's my language, right? So,
yeah.
um,
Give me something to brag on that I can see.
yeah, or even better on your phone, right? So I feel like a lot of work when you're talking systems is just how do we kill the spreadsheets, right? A lot of time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Anyways, Emmett was asking, are there Zapier resources we can hire or just build out Zaps for us? I mean, that's kind of what you guys do, right? Emmett could come and tell you, here's the Ferrari, now help me build it, right?
Yeah, basically, it's like, it's a series of a couple calls to kind of figure out what you're intending to do. We don't, again, I'm a team leader and an agent by heart, so I have that 10,000-foot view to help you kind of decipher what exactly is needed, what's possible, not possible. But yeah, you can jump in, you can see the Zaps that are available, use them. How could they apply for you? And then when you open that door up, you can see what's possible. It's like, you can go down a rabbit hole pretty darn quick. But yeah, and Zapier is just a system that helps you prove the model works, and all that. You got to go to a company to sync things up, like Daniel Poston's, right? And that's what we're working on as well, is a sync up tool outside of Zapier, because Zapier has its limitations, it does. And you can't rely on it forever, but ultimately it's a good what I call sutures, right? Stitches to the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want a Band-Aid. Sutures are pretty good. Ultimately a surgery is going to cost you more money, put you out for a while, but yeah, for sure we can help you with Zapier.
Cool. And you're building actually, like Mary was asking this, I thought it'd be good to clarify. You are building like these unique kind of workflows and automations. Okay.
Yeah. And you can do anything from an email. I mean, the power of the tech right now is just out of control. You can grab different lead sources. For me, it's all about leads, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to drive our business, and conversions. And so we're always looking at ways to help lead generation and then conversions and engagements.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, I'm gonna have our guys throw your contact info up there in the comments of a couple people asking. I think it's a very needed and on point service. So I'm really excited about what you guys are doing, and love that you work with Sisu and Sisu.
Yeah.
You come from a Sisu background. Like, that's just icing on the cake for me. But
Yeah.
anything you want to leave us with, dude, before I finally go grab a bite to eat?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I would just tell people, don't go pulling the trigger without having somebody help you with the 10,000-foot
Plan
view.
it. Yeah.
Right. Plan out what you want on the back end, on the consumer experience, and then the tech will discover itself.
Okay. I love that. That's good advice. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll take a 30-minute break on track B, and then we'll be back with who's our next speaker.